Hey guys, welcome to Pages with Sidra. Today we are going to start chapter 552 of I Have 90 Billion Licking Gold Coins. If you haven't watched the previous chapters, make sure to check them out on my channel. Now, without any delay, let's dive into the chapter. Just as the crowd murmured in worry, a luxury aircraft descended onto the runway. The very next second, 200 strong men in identical black outfits marched out in perfect formation. Their fierce presence was undeniable, less like wealthy businessmen, and more like elite bodyguards or mercenaries. Soon, the second plane landed. Another 200 black-suited bodyguards stepped out, all wearing sunglasses. Then the third plane, the fourth, the fifth, all with the same imposing aura, dressed in perfect unison. The entire airport trembled under their arrival. By the time the sixth plane landed, 200 fully armed soldiers disembarked, holding semi-automatic rifles. This was South Korea, a country where firearms are strictly prohibited. Yet here they were, armed, bold, and utterly unfazed. 1 man with a gun is a criminal. 10 men, a gang. 100? That's power in plain sight. The tension at the airport was suffocating. Security officers began to sweat, their hands unconsciously tightening on their gear. Relax. We are fully licensed and authorized by the state governor to escort Miss Catherine, one of the American soldiers said calmly in English. What? Who has that kind of power? To get the governor to deploy soldiers for an escort? She must be someone extraordinary. Who exactly is Miss Catherine? Then came the 7th plane. Again, 200 soldiers in full combat gear. 8th, 9th, 10th. And finally, Nyakyuko and Carl stepped off the aircraft, surrounded by 1,000 elite bodyguards and 1,000 U.S. soldiers in uniform. A total of 2,000 men stood at attention. All eyes turned to the woman descending from the private jet. She appeared to be in her early 30s, a stunning Western woman, radiating charm and authority. She carried the aura of a powerful businesswoman. This was Catherine, none other than Nyakyuko in disguise, wearing a special human skin mask crafted by Chen Yuan. Is that really Miss Catherine? She's gorgeous. But can she really solve our financial crisis? We need money, not just appearances. I did some digging. She's the head of operations in Las Vegas, one of America's rising financial tycoons. Rumor says she's the spokesperson for the legendary gambling god. Her estimated net worth recently broke the $100 billion US mark. That's impressive, but still not enough. To stabilize our economy and stop the surge in unemployment, we need at least 2 trillion USD. One financial group alone can't save us. Unless Wall Street steps in or Congress releases funds, we're doomed. That's not happening. They're more likely to exploit us than help. Just as she landed, Hyuko called Chen Yuan. Boss, I've arrived in South Korea. Good. I'll transfer the funds to you shortly. Boss, by the way, the human skin mask you gave me has a slight tear. I may need a replacement. No problem. I'll make a few more for you. Or if you're interested, I can even teach you how to make them yourself. Hyuko froze. In her world, a skill like that wasn't just a tool. It was an ultimate trump card. If a killer could master disguise to that extent, any assassination would become child's play. Chen Yuan had used this very skill to manipulate the entire Skull Society with ease. If he was willing to pass this on to her, it wasn't just about trust anymore. It was loyalty, kinship, family. Boss really sees me as one of his own. Suddenly, her phone buzzed. Ding. Your unlimited VIP account has received $1 billion US. Ding. Your unlimited VIP account has received $1 billion US. Ding. Your unlimited VIP account has received $1 billion US. One by one, the messages flooded in. Just like he promised, Chen Yuan was transferring $1 trillion US to her for the Korean takeover plan. She believed he was serious, but seeing it in action, it was a different kind of shock. It wasn't just about money. It was trust, power, conviction, all rolled into one. Because no woman could resist the allure of true strength. +1 favorability, Nyakyuko. +1 favorability, Nyakyuko. +1 favorability, Nyakyuko. Current favorability, 95 points. Ding. System notification. Target, Nyakyuko. Favorability surpassed 95 points. Congratulations, you've successfully turned the tables. Ding. You've spent a total of $3.3 trillion US on this target. Reward, $330 billion cashback. Ding. Additional reward, 200 enhancement points. Skills unlocked. Master assassination. Sniper precision. Hacking mastery. Bomb engineering. Polyglot, 10 languages. Infiltration mastery. Anti-surveillance. Acting mastery. Appraisal mastery. Dance, ancient yoga. Combat, singing, physics, chemistry. Name, Chen Yuan. Age, 22. Height, 185 centimeters. Weight, 82 kilograms. Power stats. Strength, 340. Constitution, 310. Spirit, 295. Agility, 240. Average human stat, 10. Status, unstoppable. Remaining lifespan, 180 years. Enhancement points left, 200. Because of the huge amount of money involved, Chen Yuan broke the transfer into 100 separate payments, each for $1 billion. To his surprise, with each transfer, Kyuko's favorability ticked up. By the time he'd sent the full 1 trillion, she was at 93 points. He kept going. When he passed 2 trillion, she hit 94. Finally, after 3.2 trillion, 95 points. Success. He had finally turned the tide. For Chen Yuan, as long as a problem could be solved with money, it wasn't a real problem. Kyuko stared at her banking app in stunned silence. Shocked. Frozen. Speechless. She couldn't even breathe. 3.2 trillion. He actually sent me over 3 trillion US dollars? Her mind blanked. She had seen wealth. She had wealth. But that was precisely why she understood. What kind of monster had just given her this much? Chapter 932, Touring the Campus. This was absolutely insane. To put things in perspective, America, the world's leading superpower, has an annual military budget of around 700 billion US dollars. But realistically, only half of that is used for actual necessities. In other words, just over $300 billion is enough to support an entire modern military for a year. Now imagine this. Over $3 trillion could fund a 2 million strong modern army for 10 years. And not just any army, one equipped with missiles, bombers, fighter jets, and aircraft carriers. As someone once hailed as the queen of assassins, she had seen her share of big storms and outrageous numbers. But even she was stunned speechless by this astronomical amount. It was absurd, outrageous, straight up insane. Boss, I think there's a mistake in the transfer. It seems you accidentally sent over 2 trillion more than planned. Chiozi sent a careful message to Chen Yuan on the Koi messaging app, but his reply came almost instantly. No mistake. I thought it through. With this financial crisis in K country, 1 trillion isn't enough to control the situation. To fully dominate their economy, you need over 3 trillion. That way, you'll have absolute say over everything, including the major corporations. Chiozi stared at the screen in disbelief. Understood, boss, but that amount is just too much. Just go all in. I believe in your ability. And if it's not enough, I've got more. At that moment, Chiozi realized something. She had completely underestimated Chen Yuan's true power. Up until now, she'd thought that between his companies, Feidun Capital, and his secret assets, his total wealth might reach 10 trillion yuan, which would already be god-tier levels of rich. That would be around 2 trillion USD at most. Even if he'd profited massively from the current crisis in K country, she assumed his total capital wouldn't exceed 3 trillion. And that was her most generous estimate. But now, she understood. She had no idea who she was really working for. With that shock still fresh in her mind, Chiozi attended a high-level corporate gathering in K country. The heads of all the major conglomerates were present, urgently looking for a solution to the nation's financial disaster. During the reception, Chiozi calmly proposed that she could inject 1 trillion USD into the market. Not only that, she was willing to buy shares in their companies at 5% above the current market rate, taking on the role of an angel investor to help them weather the storm. The entire venue went dead silent, and then exploded in shock. In a flash, Chiozi became the center of attention. Every major CEO was falling over themselves to get her favor. Meanwhile, far away from the boardrooms and high-stakes meetings, Chen Yuan looked at the system interface, where his reinforcement points had jumped to 200. Yes, finally, without any reinforcement points, he always felt a little hollow, like something was missing. Sure, his current power level was already impressive, but what if he ran into an unknown threat? What if he miscalculated and ended up losing to someone hiding their strength? After all, the world is a big place. You never know who's out there waiting to put you in your place. Better to play it safe. He hadn't forgotten. Xiantian medicine ancestor and Tina had vanished for almost a month now. If they were still alive, who knew if they were plotting something behind his back? But now that he had 200 reinforcement points, maybe he wouldn't be the one getting taken down. Maybe he'd be the one doing the taking down. As for Yao Qingtan, she was just one step away from her big breakthrough. Qin Yuan had already spoiled her with luxury bags, mansions, supercars, even a private jet. He even set up a multi-trillion capital company under her name. But she remained unmoved. She just couldn't break through that final threshold. Maybe she just needed the right trigger. The next day, Nie Chiozi and her team were officially received at the Blue House. The trillion-dollar injection had drawn serious attention. They were now VIP guests of the royal family, personally greeted by the king of K-Country himself. Chiozi never imagined that she would one day be sitting face-to-face with a monarch, speaking as equals, and even attending a national assembly. In truth, she could offer more money if she wanted. But the people of K-Country weren't stupid. $1 trillion investment was enough to calm the financial crisis, but not enough to let a single entity dominate the nation's economy. She was allowed to become a shareholder in the country's top 10 conglomerates, but not a majority shareholder. That was the unshakable line. Chiozi and her team negotiated fiercely to grab the biggest piece of the pie they could. In this game, the one with money calls the shots. The two sides probed each other's bottom lines until they finally started finding common ground. But some things can't be stopped once they're set in motion. While Chiozi was deep in negotiations, Qin Yuan was leisurely wandering around Seoul University, dressed casually in a black hoodie, white pants, sneakers, a mask, and sunglasses. They always say K-Country is full of beauties, but why doesn't it feel like a K-drama out here? He was visibly unimpressed. He'd wanted to find a few 9 out of 10 beauties to spice things up. Being abroad, no one recognized him without the title of President Yin. Without that fame aura, it was easy to test the waters and look for potential targets. But after a few days walking around the streets of Seoul, he hadn't seen a single girl who scored a 9, and there were just way too many plastic surgery cases. Apparently, the system didn't recognize artificial beauty. It lacked that natural charm and got lower ratings. So after a long stroll, he ended up here, on campus. Wow. Suna, look. That tall guy over there is so hot. I'm not into oppas, said Lin Shutong, rolling her eyes. But just as she glanced over, she froze in place. Across the walkway stood a tall man in a black hoodie and white pants, moving with calm, effortless grace. Even with a mask and shades, his presence was impossible to ignore. Brother Qin Yuan? Is that really Brother Qin Yuan? Lin Shutong couldn't believe her eyes. Back in China, she had chased him across the entire country and never even caught a glimpse. But now, here he was, walking around Seoul University. It has to be him. It has to be. Just as she was about to rush forward, a long-legged appa stepped out of a shiny Lamborghini, holding a bouquet of roses, blocking her path. Kajima, Suna, Saranghio. Don't go, Suna. I love you. Naega Chingu Gatun Ram Digo Scipio. Please be my girlfriend. Hangang Ui Gaduk. Get lost. Lin Shutong shoved him aside without hesitation. The roses scattered all over the ground. That's it for today's chapter recap. If you enjoyed the breakdown, don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe to stay updated with the latest manga, manhwa, and manhwa recaps. Got thoughts on today's chapter? Drop them in the comments. I'd love to hear your take on the story. Also, if you know other fans who were reading this manhwa but stopped because it got axed, share this video with them. The more support we get, the more motivation we'll have to keep making these videos. See you in the next one. Until then, keep turning the pages.